The cosmos has rooms and corridors few mortals know exist. Corridors where the idea of power is tested not by numbers, but by meaning. One such corridor opens between two very different minds. Beerus, god of destruction, moves through the multiverse with a ritual economy. Creation demands unmaking, stars must be culled so others may burn brighter, and order requires a hand capable of erasure. His gestures are ceremonial. His indifference is the shape of duty. He learned to keep pain clean. He learned to let entire civilizations dissolve if their continuance misplaced balance. In his orbit, there is a logic that even chaos obeys. To preserve a whole, you sometimes excise parts. He is not cruel for cruelty's sake. He is the blade that keeps the organism from rot. That is his metaphysics, destruction as necessary predicate of life. Saitama, on the other hand, belongs to a different metaphysical comedy. He started with a human vow, a mundane regimen of push-ups and losses, bent toward a goal that in any conventional account should have produced a human whose capabilities match some athletic ideal. What happened instead was the rupture of a limiter. His strength became an answer without question. He is the superhero stripped of melodrama, a satirical lens that exposes how narratives fetishize struggle. In his world, strength is an anti-tragedy. Opponents dissolve into punchlines because the machinery of challenge is broken. He's not the god of anything. He is the paradox of meaninglessness when absolute capacity meets daily life. Where Beerus is a principle, Saitama is a joke that refuses to end. To set their meeting requires matching two accounts of necessity. Beerus's necessity is cosmic. Every universe needs a metabolism of destruction. Saitama's necessity is existential. When an individual crosses an absolute threshold, meaning reconfigures, a god of destruction expects reverence, ritual, and a believable chain of causes and effects. Hakai is not just power. It is a metaphysical instrument that erases causality's threads. Against that, Saitama represents an empirical contradiction that a single, cheeky human could invalidate the expectation of difficulty itself. The tension is not mere strength, it is ontology. What does it mean to be necessary? Is a being necessary because of function within a cosmic order? Or is it necessary by virtue of narrative implacability? The kind of necessity that insists it cannot be overturned because the story refuses to allow defeat. Rumors wind like thin smoke through pantheons. Whiz hears about a bold man from a world where monsters fall to a single blow and smiles because he recognizes the scent of anomaly, the smell of an out-of-system variable. Gods whisper, mortals postulate, and in bars in unnamed galaxies, wagers are placed about whether a destroyer's ritual can match a man whose presence undercuts the very premise of opposition. Beerus takes the gossip seriously in the oldest way, with a resting curiosity that can rip planets. He wants a diversion, and the universe has offered him a puzzle with a grin for a face. Saitama continues to be bored, which in his case is not a mood, but a condition of being. He has saved cities, wooed hero associations into awkwardness, and eaten supermarket sales like a man who carries the weight of a sealed fate in his pocket. The news of a god with an eraser hand is interesting in the same way a thunderstorm is interesting. It is weather, and yet weather can drown cities. What draws them is not hatred or love. It is the philosophical itch that happens when two central metaphors of power glance off each other. Beerus's Hakai is a predicate. Remove this and that no longer exists. It is a metaphysical scalpel. Saitama's punch is an anti-predicate. It refuses the premise that resistance is possible. If a universe insists you must struggle to earn meaning, Saitama laughs and walks past its rules. If a pantheon insists destruction is part of balance, Saitama's singularity asks whether balance must obey the arithmetic of authority. The stage is therefore not merely a field. It is a courtroom where existential logics will be tested by the most visceral means both cultures know: violence. Before the battle, the cosmos arranges witnesses. Planets line up like teeth. Nebulae gather as curtains, and lesser gods arrive not to judge, but to watch a law clerk make a joke at a magistrate's bench. Beerus prepares with ritual slowness, calibrating the weight of his erasure, tasting the edges of potential consequence. He anticipates a fight with a strong adversary, one that will require him to summon a proportionate cruelty. Saitama, meanwhile, tightens his gloves in the simplest way, absent-mindedly as one might button a shirt. For him, the fight is another item in a life otherwise lacking teeth. Yet every fight he has ended quickly. The boredom persists. If Beerus brings ceremony, Saitama brings absurdity. If Beerus brings a metaphysical instrument, Saitama brings an ontological counterexample. The real question is not who can break the other's body, but which system of meaning will fracture first when confronted with its opposite. They meet on a cliff of reality itself, a neutral locus stitched from collapsed dimensions where neither God lore nor parody has full home advantage. Time ticks unevenly as a small courtesy, then stops being polite. Whis floats at a distance, amused and careful. Angels of other pantheons tilt their heads. Beerus exhales the light of collapsed suns and speaks briefly, his voice a ritual chime. Saitama blinks. The universe holds its breath because two different definitions of end are going to test whose grammar governs finality. Philosophically, the duel is a contest between two kinds of necessity: instrumental necessity versus narrative necessity. And the outcome will bend not only matter, but the very way we say why things must end. The first strike in such affairs is always an argument. Beerus's opening is not cruelty for spectacle. It is demonstration, annihilation as proof. Saitama's reply is not strategy. It is existential stubbornness. The fact that he stands is already a rebuke. The slow burn of the prelude is the real battle's philosophical rehearsal. Each watches the other to see whether metaphysical instruments have limits, whether satire can withstand ritual. The stage is set. The premises have been thrown onto the table. The only thing left is to trade blows until one premise collapses. That is where Chapter 2 begins, not merely with fists, but with an argument given no language but impact, and with the cosmos eager to see whether a man whose life is a gag can, by being unstoppable, become the answer to a god's question. When the clash finally begins, it is violent in the only honest way possible. It breaks categories. Beerus moves first because gods still respect the courtesy of opening arguments. He does not aim to wound Saitama. He aims to negate him. With a motion that is half pruning and half verdict, Beerus unleashes Hakai like a syllable of meaning, an act designed to unwrite existence. The air itself seems to recoil. The geometry of nearby realities spins, and the outline of a city a billion lives away becomes a smear of erased ink. Hakai is not about damage. It is about denial. Yet as the erasure sweeps toward Saitama, it meets an odd resistance. Not the martial parry of technique, but the blunt fact of a human being who refuses disappearance, as if the refusal were itself a law of nature. Saitama feels nothing special. To him, the attack is loud and mildly inconvenient. He has been punched through realities before. Sometimes being a problem set is a full-time job. He sighs, the way someone sighs when a fly lands in their tea, and steps forward. There is no flourish, no shouting of names. His footfalls do not echo with cosmic prophecy. They are the sound of someone moving in a hallway. The first contact between Hakai and Saitama is not a spectacle so much as a contradiction. Divine erasure meets narrative immunity. Where Hakai intends to remove, Saitama's presence acts like an unstated axiom, an assumption that cannot be disproved inside this particular story. For Beerus, this is interesting and then baffling. His erasure consumes everything up to the boundary of Saitama's physicality and then, absurdly, stops. The edges smoke and then refuse to finish the job. Beerus senses, perhaps for the first time, that his tools might be calibrated to a universe where verbs behave like objects. He narrows his eyes and increases force, letting cosmic disdain harden into concentrated unwillingness. Each use of Hakai is a statement: you will not be. Saitama, in reply, lands a single straight punch. It is not accompanied by any soliloquy or charged crescendo. It is as simple as plugging a hole in a roof. Yet where the punch lands, the grammar of destruction wobbles. Not because Beerus is weak, nothing like it, but because Saitama's punch is a metalinguistic event. It is a refusal of the premise that force requires prior negotiation with meaning. The punch does not merely bruise, it negates the necessity behind the act of erasure, a conceptual fissure that runs deeper than flesh. Where gods speak with rituals, Saitama's blow is the kind of plain fact that upends the ritual. Beerus retaliates with everything he has: velocities that splice suns, attacks that ripple with entropy, an arsenal of godly intent honed to clear contradictions. He knows how to make things stop existing in ways that do not depend on strength alone. Yet every time Beerus deploys his full measure, Saitama meets it with the peculiar immunity of a narrative axiom. The story in which he exists will not allow him to be undone. It is not that Beerus's powers are lesser. They are metaphysically different. Beerus operates in a universe where functions like Hakai are ultimate declarations. Saitama operates in a universe where authorial intention is the ultimate declaration. And in this confrontation, authorial intention shows up as the inviolable fact of his continued standing. Philosophically, the duel strips down into an argument about the source of necessity. Beerus asserts functional necessity: some things must be done to preserve order. Saitama, by existing, asserts narrative necessity. Insofar as a reality allows a being who is the embodiment of limitlessness, then defeat of that being becomes a conceptual impossibility within the terms of that reality. When Beerus's erasure hits Saitama, it does so with all the force of divine law. But the law misfires because the domain in which it attempts to operate contains an axiom it cannot absorb. Saitama's ineradicable punchline of existence, the battle's second phase, becomes metaphysical salvage. Beerus, now privately amused and incredulous, begins to shift tactics. If Hakai cannot simply delete the man, perhaps it can unmake the terms by which he stands, remove causality, invert time, detach meaning from consequence. He tries to excise the very scaffold on which narrative necessity hangs. He reshapes space to be a labyrinth of dead causation, a place where cause does not lead to consequence in the usual ways. For a time, it looks like this will succeed. The world tilts. Saitama trudges through paradox, like a man walking against a wind of words, and yet Saitama's winning is not brute force triumph so much as the victory of a meta-axiom. When a human mind reaches the point of absolute capability in a universe that writes itself around that capability, that universe must reconcile the contradiction by allowing that human to remain undefeated. The punch that finally lands is not merely a physical impact. It is the collapse of the philosophical tension, an empirical demonstration that narrative necessity can trump functional necessity when the former is the scaffolding of the latter's observation. Beerus's final look is anything but defeated in the petty sense. It is bewildered respect, like a scientist seeing an anomaly that insists on being real. Saitama, on the other hand, straightens his cape slightly more bored, and the cosmos rearranges a little to accommodate that fact. When the dust settles and the metaphysical dust has had its say, the winner is established, not because Beerus was outclassed in technique, but because the ground rules of the fight favored a different sort of necessity, one that, within the narrative frame the clash occupied, favored the man who cannot be meaningfully opposed. Saitama's victory is philosophical. It demonstrates that when an entity's nature is the annihilation of struggle itself, then ritual instruments that presuppose struggle cannot accomplish finality. Beerus learns a new modesty. Saitama resumes his habitual boredom. The universe keeps spinning, slightly embarrassed, a little wiser about the limits of its own categories.